Time, consistency, compounding. Those are the three main ingredients you need to put in your pot for when you are an investor. But we're going to go through 10 very clear, very obvious, very popular ETFs that you should have on your list. Now, this is not a situation where you buy all 10, so don't come at me in the comments. You need to pick specific ones. You're going to get a nice little checklist. So let's get into it. Now, the biggest problem we have, and I'll be honest, is brokers. Trading brokers like Trading 212, Interactive Investor, whatever it may be, they're very much not the best for research, and you need to delve a little bit deeper when you do your market research. So, for example, you can go and say the S&P on the screen. Lovely. But the problem you have is you don't have much data. You have the cost, you have how much is kind of in it, some sort of annualized returns, whatever. But other than that, you're kind of stuck. And it's not the best, obviously, 100% USA. Sectors, yeah. So what we're going to do, we're going to go through a bit of a mini checklist first before we get into it so you understand it. And it's quite simple. And the first one is the fees. How much is it going to cost you? Ideally, yes, you need it 0.25%, but most times you're never going to get that. So be mindful, especially with dividend ones, they can be a bit higher, but the yield will make up for it. If you are buying the wrong fund, you are going to notice it very quickly. This is why number 2 is important. Accumulation or distribution. Basically, accumulation, it's within the fund. Distribution, you get paid cash on the dividends, right? The third one, quite obvious, fund size. Don't go for a small fund. An unpopular fund. You may find that there's a lot of funds out there that are like really low cost. You think, I've never heard of them before. No. Always go for the safer liquidity, because if you have a good amount of money, you want to be able to sell quickly, and you do not want any slippage with that order. Also, as well, number 4, it has to be physical. Don't be fake. Don't be synthesized, whatever it's known. I can't remember the word is. But basically, you need it to be real. Other than it's not going to work. And you must also buy in Great British pounds, because if you say spend £2,000 and you buy, say, an American stock or an American fund, that £2,000 will then convert into dollars. Therefore, you have an FX effect. If that goes down or up in whatever way, you're going to notice a bit of a change in your amounts in your investments. And number 6, probably the biggest mistake of all, duplication of exposure. It's quite obvious. Basically, the holy trinity of a lot of people's investing is the all world fund, the S&P 500, and the Nasdaq. It's all America. You are literally buying the top 8 of that. Every single fund is all the same. What is the point? But before we go on, I want to say thank you to everyone who has subscribed to the channel. I'm actually blown away by the amount of support I've got across all social media networks. Please do follow along if you are enjoying this content. I want to blow you away a little bit in a minute. Just wait. You'll see. We're going to go through, as I say, the top 10, basically what you should be looking at in terms of an obvious situation. There's going to be multiple funds that I'm going to mention here, but the caveat is quite simple, what they are, right? First one, S&P. It's popular, but I don't recommend it personally. However, for the purpose of the video, I am. Now, you can see the expense ratio a bit different. There's 24 different ETFs here, right? I want to talk about something very, very important in a minute. And this is what the next step is, because there's 2 versions of this that you need to look at. So in terms of Great British Pound popular, this is the most popular one here. Quite obviously, the BlackRock. Easy, right? Realistically. It tells you how much is in it, the funds here. There is a cheaper fund here, which people do like. However, it's up to you. I'm going to tell you what the ticker is. It's CSP1 is the ticker. Very obvious. So keep your eye on that one if you're looking at the S&P. And I say, if you want to go for a cheaper one, you can. However, number 2 is the opposite version of this. This is the S&P 500 equal weight. What does this mean, Ashley? This means you're basically buying it as an equal weight. What is an equal weight? The equal weight is essentially, in simple terms, the entire portfolio equal weight. It's all the same. The problem with the S&P 500 is you have the top 8 or 7, the Magnificent 7, which are quite heavy in the S&P. If Nvidia or Microsoft or Apple has a bad day, the S&P has a bad day. So when we talk about, say, these as a situation, it's a bit more pricey. It is a very good fund, because what I'm saying is the funds are pretty much an equal weight in a pretty much kind of way. When you look at this, that is what the top 10 is. That's pretty cool, in my honest opinion. But when we look at this version, you go to the holdings, the top 10 is how many percentages? Nearly 40%. So there's 2 options of the S&P 500 for you. Now, the next and the most obvious one is the All World Fund. This is quite simple. I don't want to go too deep, but ultimately, this is tracking the entire market. These are not as popular as I would have thought. But the reality is with this, you get quite a lot of optimized sampling, not full physical replication, because you have basically 4,000 stocks in it, just saying. So the funds, in terms of fees, a little bit higher. They're not as popular. But if you want the most simple, for me, simple, this is probably the way to go. If you want proper hands off, I just want to follow the market and I'm happy with average, this is probably where you go, realistically, right? Now, obviously, yeah, the holdings, you can still see the weight is very heavy in terms of the top 10 because you've got the Magnificent Seven. So basically, it rules out the S&P 500 because you've already got it in here, yes. And you can have the rest of the world as well within it. In a way, 58% of this is still America. So you've got some diversification, but not a lot, right? We will talk about that later on. You'll start to notice. Performance-wise, good. It's decent. It works. It's probably the most obvious if you are looking at the most, I want to be the most beginner friendly kind of fund. You can just buy that and probably be quite happy with it. Now, I don't know if you know from my accent, but I'm from England. And I don't understand why many UK content creators or even UK people are like, I don't want the UK. It's crap. It's actually not that bad. There is some good funds here. I'll be honest, it's not perfect, but I don't actually hold the FTSE 100. I will tell you what I hold in a minute. You'll see. But this is all right. This is really decent. Now, the reason why I say it's decent is because it's on a bit of an upward curve. The FTSE 100 is going on a bit of a rip right now, and that's fine. But there is one thing with this which I will talk about, which is quite important. Now, the same as the UK as well, obviously, the top 10 is quite heavily baked. It always will be in a lot of these funds, so just be mindful of that. So if you're banking on, like, say, the banking sector collapsing at any point, maybe you don't want to be in here. Or if you don't really like, certain companies, just saying, you get the point. However, thus been said, the performance has been really good of late. Even in periods of downturn with, like, say, the S&P 500, which was quite red, the FTSE's actually been quite moderately good. Now, the one thing that does take the pie is the fact that the dividend of this is pretty much double and a bit versus, say, the US market. So you can get a very, very nice dividend yield with UK related stocks. In terms of this, by the way, it's ISF. It's a good one. It was one of my options. I didn't go for it. I went with another one, and I'll explain why in a minute. However, if you are in the UK as well, there's also the FTSE 250, which is VMID. This has a higher dividend yield. It's a bit more volatile. It's not as popular, but ultimately it is the rest of the UK minus the top 10, top 100, sorry. Obviously, the weights are very, very different, much more heavily weighted around, across the entire fund, which is much, much better. But in terms of the overall metrics, not perfect in terms of growth, but it has good dividend yield. But this fund will obviously be more volatile because of the fact that it is the lower down sort of the tree. However, as I say, UK markets, they do offer much heavier dividend yields. For me, though, probably wouldn't go for this, but I'm giving you the option anyways if you are interested in something a bit more riskier. Going back over to America, we're going to look at technology a little bit. The NASDAQ. Haha, obviously. There's quite a lot of ETFs here for obvious reasons. Not amazing, but you get the idea. They're all here. Higher percentages, though, for obvious reasons. So maybe do a bit more research on that, but you will get very, very limited, in my honest opinion, dividend yield at all. Hardly any dividends on these, realistically. Obviously, this is an accumulation fund, but you get the idea. However, the top weight of it is very heavy. So as I say, there's no point having the S&P, there's no point having the NASDAQ and the All World Fund together. Pick one of them out of all three. Now, in terms of emerging markets, this is a little bit different. If you own global, yeah, cool, but you already need to own some of this as well, realistically, because this is a bit more concentrated. Now, what this does is a bit different for obvious reasons. The emerging markets have a little bit of a different caveat to them, but there is nearly 3,000 stocks here. You'll see very, very quickly they don't have America in it, basically. They have the rest of the world. It kind of makes sense having one of these in your portfolio. In terms of the results, not amazing though. That'll be one big contentious decision because sometimes they're good, sometimes they're bad. But you will get very, very limited amount of dividends as well, obviously in certain countries, depending on what they're doing and what because heavy technology basically. So you may find that you're going to have a bit of a flaw there. However, it's a good option, really good option, realistically, if you're interested in other worlds. And if you want to be fully diversified, you probably want to have, for example, the European market the US market, and the emerging markets. They're the three obvious ones. You have a very good diversified spread. Sorry. My problem with my own portfolio is I don't have this sort of thing. I'm not really my sort of cup of tea. But for me, that's me, obviously. But yeah, EMIM is the one, the BlackRock one. Decent fund, realistically, if you want an obvious emerging market. Gold, higher. Now, this is a gold ETFs or ETCs. Again, I know gold is on a rip ride at the minute. You don't have to go for this. These are physically backed. It's up to you. For obvious reasons, I would say as a content creator, don't buy gold just yet. Wait for it to cool off because it's gone to the moon. However, if you are looking at something more defensive, as a defensive hedge, if you think the market's going to go crippling boom, you could look at gold as an ETF or an ETC because it is physically backed and you don't have to hold the freaking thing. You don't have to buy a new safe and have military dogs around the house, basically. So that's good. So yeah, you can do it that way. That is SGLN as the ticker, quite an obvious one. Again, BlackRock, heaviest fund, physical, accumulator, whatever. It's simple. The problem with gold is, for obvious reasons, it's not going to pay you. Now, the final one and the final kind of sector I'm going to cover on this video is global dividend stocks. Now, the reason why I'm talking about the dividend ETFs here is because these have lower volatility, they have higher income, and they're less likely to blow up on your face, realistically. Now, in terms of my portfolio, I have 3 of these with my individual stocks. I have the high yield all world fund. So basically, this is a high dividend yields of the all world, if that makes sense. So the all world fund, before I showcased it, that has everything. This one only has a high dividend yields, which is good. I also have the Van Heck Morningstar Developed Market, which is basically England and Europe and all those kind of countries with good dividend stocks. And I also have the UK only high dividend yield, which is a kind of the version of the FTSE 100, but with the high dividend payers in there. Now, the one that I have, as I just mentioned, the one that is kind of like the FTSE 100 is the IUKD. It is very, very heavy on the funds, I know, and the fees and stuff like that. But for me, it works very, very well. It is giving you the biggest concentration and the biggest amount of yield in the UK. It's a good, solid performing one at the moment. Whether that continues or not is another thing. But as I say, it's decent. It's a decent little portfolio. It gives you the best stocks in the UK that are paying you a good yield. Now, the most obvious one, if you're in the all world, is this one, basically the high dividend yield payers. It gives you a decent dividend yield. It's good performance overall, and it does have the most obvious stocks out there across the world. Most of it, though, in America still. The only downside to this portfolio, and for me, and my own one, is this one. Why? Because it's not in the UK. Basically, it's in the Netherlands, so there is withholding tax on the dividends. However, the dividends are pretty meaty, pretty good, and the performance is absolutely brilliant. One of the best performing ETFs on the planet at the minute, certainly for when you look at stocks. 2025, 30%, it's pretty good. Even this year, in the last month, it's doing really well. And if you want to see the ones that I've got, as you can see, I've got this one, I have that one, and I have that one. So feel free to pause along and you'll see that. But ultimately, the performance of them are all fantastic. I will do an article based off this video and it'll be on my website. There's a link below to this. If you want to sign up, it's all free. You can get some members-only articles. I am building a tool, as I've alluded to before in previous videos, that is going to hopefully help you with stock research in terms of explaining to you like a 7-year-old in terms of numbers and information and all the stuff that you need to look for, which makes it easier. But I'll be honest with you, most wealth isn't from darting from ETF to ETF. It's picking solid ones and sticking with them. Time, consistency, compounding. That is it. Keep that as your one mantra. I've got my 3 picks. You need to pick at least 3, in my opinion. And don't go for the 3 obvious ones of the all world fund, the S&P, the NASDAQ, because the growth stocks are amazing. Not always. Doesn't always. You need to have a spread because there's always a bull market somewhere, and they are not currently in the US stocks right now. If you've looked at the charts, you'll see they're not doing as well as the other countries at the minute. Have a good spread. And if you like this sort of thing, feel free to subscribe to the video, like the video, and comment what your favorite one is. And yeah, don't forget, watch this. It's an older video, but it's a good one.